Hey everyone, I'm Armor Gaming. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Monster Analysis. Up for analysis today is the Sentinel. The Sentinel has been sent by Panzea, an advanced civilization in a faraway galaxy, to establish first contact with the monsters. It is his mission to observe and record their every activity. Now, I gotta say, I really do enjoy this monster design. Here we have him as a child, as a teen, as an adult, and throughout all his forms, I really do enjoy them. It looks really futuristic, it looks really sleek, it's really cool overall. And as you can see, he is a metal monster, therefore his weakness is magic. But anyways, let's jump into his stats. He has a power of 3,322, which when considering only metal legendary monsters, this is a rather low power. In fact, this puts him in tied for 10th place with monsters like Ultra Ball and Mechamancer. So overall, not a high power for metal monsters, and it's arguable whether that's okay or not okay, because what you're going to see from his skills is that this monster can be either an attacker or a supporter. So anyways, let's talk about his life. His life is 25,334. Which when we're talking about only legendary metal monsters, this again is rather low. In fact, it puts him in tied for 12th place with Super Dan. So this monster has a rather low power and a rather low life. But now let's talk about the speed. The Sentinel has a speed of 3,476, and I have to say this is absolutely amazing. This monster just became the fastest metal legendary monster, and in fact when considering all monsters, when considering all 150 plus monsters, the Sentinel tied for 13th place to be the fastest monster. He's tied with monsters like Galante, he's tied with monsters like Sarah, so this is an amazing speed. So quick little recap, low power, low life, but an incredible speed. Anyways, his trait is immune to harden. All status effects have a 20% less accuracy against it, which I gotta say is one of the best traits to have in the entire game. So let's start things off with his default and special skill. We have Arrival Slam, deals low physical damage, attacks a single enemy, 25 damage, 13 stamina, no cooldown. Okay, we can disregard that, and look at Backup Request. Deals low metal damage, attacks a single enemy, 30 damage, 13 stamina, no cooldown. Okay, there's nothing special about his default skills. Let's take a look at his special. Interplanetary Strike, deals very heavy metal damage to all enemies, may magnetize all targets, may slow down all targets. So it's an AoE that deals 65 damage and it can magnetize and slow. So even though this monster doesn't have the highest power, I still gotta say I really do like this attack. The 65 damage is nice, the fact that it can magnetize and the fact that it has a chance to slow, that is really nice because both magnetize and slow, those skills have some synergy with some of his regular skills. So with that out of the way, let's move on to skills group 1. In skills group 1 we have a skill called Elliptical Smash. Deals moderate special damage, 50% chance of stunning the target. It attacks a single enemy with 35 damage, costs 26 stamina, and it has no cooldown. So a 50% chance to stun, you guys have heard me say this before, 50% chance to do anything is really not that good. I wouldn't recommend running this skill. We also have a skill called Weakened Structure. Deals moderate metal damage, 50% chance of magnetizing the target. It attacks a single enemy with 35 damage, also costs 26 stamina, and it also has no cooldown. Again, you really don't need this attack. 50% chance of magnetizing, that's not going to do much. And this monster does have a low power, so keep that in mind, you don't need this skill. And last but not least, we have Invasion Drones. Deals low metal damage to all enemies, requires cooldown. So it's an AoE dealing 25 damage, 31 stamina, 2 turn cooldown. Now normally I would say you don't need this skill. Normally I would say you can completely disregard skills group 1, but that's actually not the case with this monster. In fact, with this monster you actually might want to run Invasion Drones. An AoE that deals 25 damage, 31 stamina, you might be thinking armor, that is really low, but once I explain skills group 2 and 3, you're going to see that this skill does have some use. So just keep it in mind, you might actually want to run this skill. And before I completely move on to skills group 2, I just have to say there are like 3 potential really good skill sets I see for this monster, and I will discuss that at the end once I finish analyzing all those different skills. The following skill we have is called Suborbital Impact. Deals moderate special damage, may magnetize target, requires cooldown. Attacks a single enemy with 40 damage, costs 28 stamina, has a 1 turn cooldown, and this is just like a guaranteed magnetize instead of a 50% magnetizing. Now one thing to keep in mind is that this is a special skill and not a metal skill, so that'll be perfect when you're going up against metal monsters. And honestly, this is one skill you might want to run, and to be honest, all the skills from now on, you could potentially run them. It really depends on the kind of build you want to make. So moving on to System Override. May magnetize all targets. It's an AoE, deals no damage, costs 26 stamina, it has no cooldown, and all this skill does is to magnetize everyone. And normally this skill looks like a waste of a skill, like why would you want to waste 1 turn magnetizing when there are metal monsters specifically that have AoE magnetize skills that deal like 35 damage or 30 damage or sometimes 40 damage. And those monsters that do that, they tend to have a higher power, so you might be thinking it's not worth using the Sentinel and using System Override, but again I'll talk about that later on when I talk about different combinations and different skill sets that work with this monster. And we also have a skill called Precise Mechanism. Gains precision, gains double damage, requires cooldown. It's a skill applied to the self, it deals no damage obviously, it costs 28 stamina and it has a 2-turn cooldown. The cool thing about this skill is that it increases your monster's accuracy and it gives your monster double damage. Now based on what we have seen so far, you might be thinking this is not a skill worth running. Suborbital Impact, it deals like 40 damage, System Override doesn't deal any damage, and we have Invasion Drones which is an AoE 25, it is not worth it. And normally I would agree with you, based on what we have seen so far, a low power, skills that don't deal much damage, this monster doesn't really look like he can be an attacker, but maybe you'll change your mind once I talk about Skills Group 3. In Skills Group 3 we have a skill called Surface Destruction. Deals heavy special damage, may magnetize target, requires cooldown. It attacks a single enemy, dealing 50 damage, costing 28 stamina, and having a 1-turn cooldown. So this is kind of like his previous skill, Suborbital Impact, except it deals a little more damage, 10 more damage, and it essentially does the same thing. Again, you might want to run this skill depending on whatever build you're going for. The following skill is called Deep Analysis. May reboot all targets, requires cooldown. It's an AoE, deals no damage, costs 26 stamina with a 3-turn cooldown. So it reboots all targets, which is essentially the same thing as being possessed. If a monster has immune to possession, they are also immune to rebooted. Now obviously so far this is the best skill this monster has. An AoE possession skill is an AoE deny skill. It's absolutely amazing. When you combo Deep Analysis with this monster's incredible base speed, it's obvious that this monster just became one of the best metal deny monsters. And just so all of you know, the only monster that's immune to possession is Stinger S1. So obviously for Team Wars, this monster could be a perfect choice. But now for the final skill. This is a skill that makes this monster incredibly unique. This is a skill that makes it so this monster can have like 3 different sets and they all work really well. This skill is called Execution Overload. Gains double damage, gains 3 extra turns, and after that the attacker will die. Requires cooldown. So it's another self skill that deals no damage, 31 stamina, has a 4-turn cooldown. And what this skill does is that it gives your monster double damage and 3 extra turns consecutively. So as soon as he uses Execution Overload, he gets 3 extra turns. Now the bad thing about that is that he's gonna die because it applies Fatal Countdown to himself. So the second you use Execution Overload, as soon as your 3 extra turns are up, you're gonna lose your monster. So some people might argue that this monster wouldn't be good for Team Wars because if you don't win before those 3 turns, you're gonna lose a monster, which means you're gonna lose an extra coin, and that's completely a valid argument. But I'm gonna try to convince you guys that this monster can serve a purpose in Team Wars, and overall he's just a really good monster. So anyways, let's jump into the different skill sets. So one of the skill sets you can choose for this monster, you would put all speedruns on this monster, you would run Execution Overload, Deep Analysis, and Precise Mechanism. And then the last skill, it would probably be Surface Destruction, or I'm just realizing this right now as I'm doing the analysis, you could potentially also run Elliptical Smash. I know I said it's not worth running this skill because it's a 50% chance to stun, but Precise Mechanism gives you increased accuracy, which increases the chance of actually landing stun. So that's really up to you, Elliptical Smash or Surface Destruction. And the reason I'm even recommending this skill now is because keep in mind, if you're running all speedruns combined with this monster's low power, Surface Destruction isn't really going to do much. It's not going to deal that much more damage. So maybe, just maybe, it would come in handy to have an extra stun skill available to you. So essentially the purpose of this skill set is just to ensure that you can deny the enemy monster. So you start off with Execution Overload, you get double damage and you get your 3 extra turns, which is what matters. 3 extra turns, the double damage is rather irrelevant. Once you have your 3 extra turns, you would do Precise Mechanism. And again, it gives you double damage, but that's irrelevant. What you're going after here is the increased accuracy. So now you have 2 extra turns, so now you have 2 turns left, and you have increased accuracy. This will allow you to do Deep Analysis, which may reboot all targets. As you know, AoEs can miss, but when you have increased accuracy, they're most likely not going to be missing. So this kind of ensures a guaranteed possession. And then for your last attack, you can do Surface Destruction just to damage the monster a little more, or if you want, you can run Elliptical Smash to try to stun a monster. Now you may be thinking, stun and rebooted or possession, those don't really go hand in hand. Why would I want to stun a monster that's going to be possessed? I'd rather have him possessed. Just keep in mind, depending on what monsters you face, you might go against monsters that are immune to possession. If you're going up against magic and dark monsters, lots of those monsters have immune to possession. So in that case, I think it really would be to your benefit to run Elliptical Smash. So really quickly, you can run all speedruns, run Execution Overload, Deep Analysis, Precise Mechanism, and Elliptical Smash. And if you're not too convinced running Elliptical Smash, feel free to run Surface Destruction. And again, I think the biggest argument to why this monster isn't as good as people think he is because of the fact that he dies. So in Team Wars, it's not good if your monster dies because you lose out on a coin, which means your whole team loses out on a coin. But I don't think people should be viewing it like that. I don't think people should be looking at this monster and saying, we have to start the game off with Execution Overload. We have to. That's not the case. In fact, if you're in Team Wars, you can start off the game with deep analysis. Do your AoE possession, AoE rebooted, whatever you want to call it, and start off by immobilizing the enemy monsters, and then see where the game goes from there. And if it wasn't successful, if they didn't kill themselves, well, you just go from there. Keep in mind that if you use deep analysis, it has a 3-turn cooldown, which means if you do execution overload, you get 3 extra turns, which means you'll actually be able to do AoE possession again. You'll be able to use deep analysis one more time. And yes, your monster will die, but overall you will win the game and you will get 2 coins. So do not think that you have to start a game with execution overload. You can start off the game doing your AoE deny skill, and then if it comes to it, use your AoE deny skill one last time. But if you do this, you probably don't have enough stamina to begin with. You'll probably need to run a 3rd monster with a high level team stamina rune. But anyways, another skill set you could run would be to use execution overload, deep analysis, system override, and this is where invasion drone really shines, even though it's only 25 damage. So the idea with this skill set is to start off with execution overload, give yourself double damage for 3 turns, and then you do system override, which magnetizes all of the enemies. So now you have double damage and all of your enemies are magnetized. So then you do this metal based AoE. Sure, it's 25 damage, but keep in mind, you have double damage and they're all magnetized. So this is going to deal some serious damage to the enemy monsters, and then you can end off with deep analysis, just so the enemies, whoever's still alive, they can finish themselves off. Again, your monster will die, but you can pretty much guarantee that the enemy monsters will die. And for this, I would still recommend 3 speed runes. You might be thinking, why not 1 strength rune? And honestly, you don't need it. The whole point of this monster is to be your deny monster, but he's also going to be dishing out some damage. He's going to be dishing out with the execution overload, system override, invasion drones combo, and ultimately you're just there to deny, you're just there to possess all of the enemy monsters. This is a really good skill set, I think, one that can definitely work. And the 3rd skill set I see, and it doesn't make use of deep analysis, the 3rd skill set I see is execution overload, surface destruction, suborbital impact, and invasion drones, which is completely different from the opposite skill set. And you might be thinking, why am I going to be using suborbital impact and surface destruction? Well, it's essentially the same thing. You start off with execution overload, and you're giving yourself double damage, right? So then you do surface destruction, which already deals 50 damage, but it also magnetizes 1 monster. And then you do suborbital impact, which at the same time it does 40 damage, and it magnetizes 1 monster. So 2 out of 3 of the enemy monsters will be magnetized, which then you follow up with invasion drones. So you've already damaged a monster with 50 and with 40, but keep in mind you had double damage. And then those 2 monsters you damage, you're gonna do invasion drones, so they are now magnetized. You're giving a 25 AoE, and you have double damage. So this skill set could potentially knock out 3 of the enemy monsters, and if this is the skill set you're using, I would recommend running strength runes. In fact, this is actually the strength build, and why this monster can be an attacker, but again, keep in mind, he will die at the end of the combo. And if some of you are thinking, why run invasion drones, why not just run deep analysis? The point is that this is a strength build, this is the attacker build. You really don't get any benefit running deep analysis. Like, yeah, the enemy will be possessed and attack themselves, but really you're gonna miss out on your strength runes. And what's the whole point of doing surface destruction and suborbital impact if these skills are magnetizing? These skills are essentially setting up for invasion drones. So that's the final skill set: execution overload, surface destruction, suborbital impact, and invasion drones, and run strength runes in that build. Run at least 2 high level strength runes. So as you can see, this monster is incredibly unique. There are so many different combinations of skills you can actually choose for this monster that'll all work really well. But the biggest criticism to him comes with execution overload, and that has to do with the whole fatal countdown. The fact that this monster will kill himself, that doesn't really make him a top choice for Team Wars. Now I'm gonna do my best to combat that claim, and I gotta say, for the most part, I do agree with it. In Team Wars, this might not be your best bet, but at the same time, Team Wars is so circumstantial that in fact this monster can be your best bet. So the number 1 reason I say that has to do with the monster's base speed. Again, 3,476, this officially is the fastest metal monster, at least as of the time I'm making this video. There is no metal monster faster than this monster, and like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, this monster is tied for 13th place out of all legendary monsters. That means that there are over 140 monsters that are slower than him. So what does that mean? That means that because this monster has such an incredible base speed, he will be able to start off the game with deep analysis. He'll be able to immobilize the enemy monster before they get a chance to immobilize you. And in most cases, this is really all you need. If you have really high level runes, as soon as you possess the enemy monsters, as soon as you deny them from using their turn, and for that reason, the Sentinel can be a really good choice in Team Wars. So it's really just that combination of his speed and deep analysis that makes him a really good choice. I think the problem with saying he's not a good choice is because people will look at one skill, execution overload, and think they have to use that skill. there is no reason why you have to use any skill with any monster. If anything, just think of it as a safety precaution. If you ever need to use Execution Overload, at least you have the capacity to use it. It's better knowing that you have the skill to use just in case you need it, rather than to say you have to use the skill. So again, it's just speed and deep analysis that makes this monster a top tier choice. And the second reason I say the Sentinel is a really good choice has to do again with his speed. 3,476. I have to do some calculations to show you guys why this is really good, other than you guys just taking my word for it. So before I talk about that, I need to talk about runes really quickly. So here we have speed runes level 6, level 7, level 8. And I know you can't see the icon, but you can see right there it says speed. So I'm going to talk primarily about a speed level 9 rune and a speed level 10 rune. As you can see, a speed level 9 rune increases a monster's speed by 34%, whereas a speed level 10 rune increases the monster's speed by 35%. And the only reason I'm comparing these two runes is because if you're a free-to-play player, you can get level 9 runes without having to spend a single dime. If you have level 10 runes though, you most likely, more often than none, I'm not saying everyone that has a level 10 rune paid for them, but most likely if you have a lot of level 10 runes, you probably bought them. You didn't get them throughout playing the game. So for example, I have a level 10 rune, but it took me forever to get. I think it cost me like 450 gems or even more gems. But level 9 runes on the other hand, Soldier Point will actually release them in the team shop. So if you save enough war coins, you can easily buy level 9 runes. It's not rare to see someone who's free to play to have a lot of level 9 runes. But if you have a lot of level 10 runes and you're claiming to be free to play, if you're claiming to have never spent a dime on this game, I don't know what the odds of that actually are. But anyways, we're going to be comparing both 9 and 10 runes. And again, the assumption is free to play players can easily get level 9 runes, but you have to spend to get level 10 runes. And then we're going to be comparing the Sentinel with someone like the Metalhead. And if you're wondering why I chose Metalhead, it's because he is a monster you will most likely run into in Team Wars. If not him, someone like Timerion, who is slower, but Timerion is immune to all negative effects, so it's not really fair putting him into the play. So I think Metalhead would be a good monster. Metalhead, as you know, has a base speed of 3,421, whereas the Sentinel, once again, 3,476. So he has a few more points. He has 46 points over Metalhead, and then we're going to take into account some runes. So let's check it out. A Sentinel with a base speed of 3,476, let's type that in, 3,476. Looking at the runes guide again, a level 9 speed rune increases the monster's base speed by 34%, which means if that monster had 3 level 9 speed runes, his speed would experience a 102% increase. So we go back to our calculator and we multiply that by 2.02. And the reason there's a 2 in front is because this takes into account the monster's base speed. We press equal sign and check it out. His new speed would be 7,021.5, which would round up to 7,022. And now let's see what happens to Metalhead. So Metalhead has a base speed of 3,421, 3,421, and we are going to multiply that. Look at the runes guide. Level 10 speed rune, 35%. So 3 of them increases the monster's base speed by 105%. So we go over to our calculator, multiply by 2.05, press equal, and we get 7,013.05. So here we have the Sentinel, here we have Metalhead. The Sentinel, Metalhead. Keep in mind, this is the Sentinel with level 9 speed runes, 3 level 9 speed runes. Here we have Metalhead with 3 level 10 speed runes. So I already mentioned this, for Team Wars, it's really circumstantial. It really depends on what the enemy has, what the requirements are. But the reason I'm saying Sentinel can serve a purpose in Team Wars is because under certain situations, if ever you're in a Team Wars where you have the Sentinel and your runes might be like 1 level below the enemy's runes, then depending who the enemy has, so example, Sentinel versus Metalhead, you have level 9 runes, Metalhead has level 10 runes, you would gain the upward advantage. You could start off with your AoE deny skill, start off with the deep analysis, and you have a really good chance of winning the game. So that's just an example I wanted to put out there. That's a reason I wanted to say don't discount the Sentinel before you actually get a chance to use him, and you shouldn't discount him because of his incredible base speed. But with all that being said, guys, that is going to conclude this analysis. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. I know it was a lot longer than my previous analysis, but this monster just had so much to talk about. But now I want to hear your guys' opinion on this monster. Do you think he's good? Do you think he's worth getting? Do you think he's worthy of being like top 10 legendary monster material? Or do you think he just doesn't have the right skills for it or the right stats for it? Please let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know who you want me to analyze next week. And with that being said, guys, have a great day. Remember to dream big and pursue your passions.